Hi, I'm Ronda Coryell, and I'm here at Rio Grande in Albuquerque to demonstrate the use of masking mud. I developed this as a way of making it where you can fuse and have areas that will not fuse, or when you're soldering so that your solder doesn't flow. I use it similar to what you would use whiteout or yellow ochre, but it's really easy to remove. Now I'm going to show you how to make one of these ear wires. It has a jump ring at the bottom, and the wire that I lay across bends up, and that becomes the earring post. So if I put the mud here and here, it will not fuse underneath that part of the wire. So I've marked again with a permanent marker, and that gives me the line I know I want to go to. Again, I've already put flux on this. And I've already pre-fluxed my wires. And I'll also put the mud over this part of the wire that's sticking out. Now I'm going to fuse this wire down to the other two wires. Okay, here comes the fusing temperature. And the mud comes off very easily with soap. So you can see it wouldn't fuse where I had the mud. And this end also. So this gives me an earring post, and this part I can simply use as a hook. So now I have a hook and the earring post. Here's one where I fused granules on the other side before I put my wire down. And this is now ready to solder. Because I don't want the solder to flow onto my jump ring, I'll protect that area with the mud. I had already put my flux before I put my mud and let the flux dry slightly. Always let it cool slightly because this is argentium. Now you can use this on any metal. It can be used on sterling, on gold, anywhere that you would want to mask something off. And you see that everything was protected there. So I put my flux first, and then I will protect this hole with the masking mud. I just want to be careful to not get the mud to the point where I'm going to put my solder. So I will simply heat the bale until it gets close to the temperature that I know that the solder will flow, and then come in and solder. And it totally protected the hole. Let it cool again before you move it, because when argentium is hot, it can crumble. So there we go. And again, this mud is easy to remove. And by doing it this way, it didn't disturb the patina on the piece. Okay, you've seen where the metal can want to draw together. So I'm going to fuse just this bottom part. I've marked the spots with a permanent marker, and I will put the mud up to that line, which is right there, because I don't want it to fuse any higher than that. Okay, I'm ready to fuse this bottom part now. Squeeze the two rings together so that they're touching, and that's ready to fuse. Let it cool slightly, and I'm going to turn the ring over to go from the other side. Now, since it's still warm, it won't take as long to come up to that fusing temperature. Okay, here it comes, and there we are. Again, using a soft brush, I'll be able to get down in there to remove the mud. And you can see where the ring fused together in the areas that I wanted it to, and it stopped exactly where I had the mud. So I need to put the flux where I'm going to put my solder, but I will put the mud next to it again to protect the chain. And to protect the toggle. So again, you can see that the mud helped protect and that this didn't solder to it or fuse to it. Now, this chain has much tighter links, so I want to make sure that none of the solder flows up that chain. I'm going to fill the end of this chain with the mud. And that then protects it from the solder flowing down the chain. I'm going to put the seam of the jump ring right next to that wire because I want the solder to go right there but not flow up the chain. You can see that that protected the chain and none of the solder was able to flow up into there. Often the capillary action will draw solder into areas that you don't want. Again, to demonstrate how without the mud it will draw the metal in. I've put flux all over the pieces. But this is the area where it will want to draw in, is here at the top. So you can see, as with the other project, how it can distort and draw in if you don't protect that area. So for this one, you see where I've marked the U shape. I want it to fuse only from there up. So I will put my mud from that point down before I lay them in together. Again, I coated my pieces with flux before I put my mud. It could not flow past that point where I added the mud. So if you have left the lid off for too long, it gets a little thick. You can see the difference in the consistency. So I have distilled water, and I'll add a little at a time until I have made it more dilute. It's harder to use when it's too thick. To put the jar of mud away, I like to clean out the lid first to make sure that there is not a lot of dried mud in the part that seals the lid. And I use a damp rag to wipe the top of the jar to make sure that it's clean. This ensures that you'll have a tight seal when you put the lid on. I hope that this information for the use of masking mud was useful to you. If you have any questions, contact Rio Grande.